Welcome back, everybody. Today we are jumping right into the Cardano Vasil hard fork upgrade. We have some good updates there, and just want to make sure everyone understands what's going on. So, Mata, if you want to hop into that roadmap really quick, and we'll get started. So, really fast, just for quick context, Vasil. A lot of times you see a lot of this kind of misnomer of what Vasil is. It's not a phase of their roadmap. It's a phase to enable. It's basically a hard fork to enable the rest of their roadmap. So right now we're in between Goguen and Basho. We haven't reached Basho yet, but the Vasil hard fork is in preparation for Basho. So Basho is all about scaling, and that's kind of where the Hydra layer 2 integration is going to come in to help with some scaling. But Shelly is, essentially smart contracts. When staking came in, Goguen is all about, elaborating on those smart contracts. Vasil hard fork is part of that to then get ready for Basho. So that's kind of where Cardano is now. But going into what the hard fork actually does is kind of more of the important stuff that we want to cover today. So there were 4 or 5 main things that the hard fork actually did. And can you guys all see that? So again, we said that there were 4 or 5 things that Cardano did with this Vasil upgrade. So one of the first things is the actual cost of transactions will be reduced. So validators are going to have all the previous information stored on the blockchain much faster. That's going to help reduce the cost per transaction. The other thing that it's going to do is improve the scalability of the dApps that are on ADA, on the Cardano blockchain. So we're actually going to be able to see Cardano ensuring data to be stored on the chain as opposed to off the chain. So there's going to be a better relationship between data and the blockchain. So that's going to help with the scalability of the decentralized applications on Cardano. The other thing that it's going to do is actually enhance the speed of transactions. So the biggest thing to know about the Vasil upgrade is that it's enhancing the coding language that Cardano, dApps, and other applications are built on. So that's Plutus. So essentially, this is a version 2 of that Plutus script, of that Plutus language. And so now with this V2 upgrade, you're going to be able to basically reduce the size of each data point on each block, meaning you can actually process more transactions per block. So the speed and the transactions per second is expected to be enhanced from that. One other thing that actually kind of slips under the radar is it's actually going to improve the security. And even though Cardano hasn't had an outage in pretty much 5 years, I think this is still important to hit on. So it actually introduces this little bit of collateral. So previously, when someone is interacting with a dApp and has transaction fees, it actually posts an automatic collateral amount of 150% of the transaction fee. And if that validation fails on that transaction, you're actually going to lose all those tokens. Whereas now you actually have a specified wallet address that automatically transfers that collateral to a different address so that you're not losing all those funds on a dApp transaction. So this goes back to the ability to actually scale that, but it also enhances the blockchain security where you're not having people just lose out on funds for not having successful transactions.
And really quick, Sia, this is addressing the DDoS attacks that Solana has seen and other blockchains have seen. This is really addressing that exact issue where, these hackers or, bad actors are able to fire off millions of transactions to take down the network. Here, they're going to have to post collateral to be able to do that. And because of that, not be able to shoot off that many transactions. So it really takes over, or it solves an issue that is pretty core to Solana's outages that we've seen in the last couple quarters here.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the last thing I'll hit on here before we can kind of turn to you guys and see what your thoughts are on this is we've seen some interesting on-chain data from Cardano. Can you guys see this screen? Awesome.
Yep.
So what this is showing right now is just smart contracts created per day. What we're focusing on more is the Plutus scripts. So these are actually active projects that are being built on Cardano. So the actual smart contracts that are going to be using Plutus to actually code what they're doing. And so we kind of saw leading up to the Vasil hard fork in August. And obviously this doesn't cover, before August, but this is actually pretty much like a straight line from 2,000 scripts all the way past 3,000. And I think it just shows like the confidence of the folks that are going to be building on Cardano, that, they understand, hey, we trust Charles Hoskinson, and obviously it honestly looks like it's paying off because it went really, really smoothly. The upgrade was a success, took about 20 minutes. The network didn't go offline. And basically it occurred on Thursday of last week, but all the upgrades are not going to be usable until tomorrow, so Tuesday of this week. So we're actually going to start seeing those Plutus V2 capabilities enabled and usable tomorrow. So within the next month, we're actually going to see, the Vasil upgrade being used to actually improve the experience of Cardano. Whereas on Ethereum, obviously, we're kind of a long ways out from that being the case. And so, I think it's just an interesting note when you're talking about Cardano versus, Solana or Ethereum. A lot of people hate on Cardano, but it does have pretty strong fundamentals from a blockchain perspective.
And I think an interesting point here is that with a lot of updates, maybe the end user doesn't actually see the changes in their day-to-day, UX. Something that we could highlight here is that, they are going to be paying less money. There's a better developer experience because, like you talked about, there's a new pieces of data that's actually going to be stored on-chain rather than off-chain. They're called datums. And that's something that required developers to pay transaction fees to go look into that data for the applications that they're writing. No longer are those requests going to have to pay ADA transaction fees. So you can see how the end user is going to benefit in this sense, because they're going to have a more seamless experience, a cheaper experience, in something that's, just updates like this continue to make, the Cardano more attractive as a blockchain.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, how timely it was. Like they only had one delay and it was 3 months. It was 1 quarter. Whereas, Ethereum and a lot of these other, and it's just the nature of the game, right? But I think it also speaks to how organized they are behind the scenes, that they're not putting it out so many times and all that kind of stuff. So I think that kind of speaks to the success of the team. But were you going to say something, Mata?
No, I think that was a really good recap. So I appreciate that. And I think it's really important to kind of hone in on the fact that this is kind of their first step into this scalability portion of their roadmap, right? Obviously, this is kind of the beginnings, and then you're going to have things like Hydra coming out. And it's really cool to see these upgrades, not just for the general pieces that we've been talking about, but I think what we always go into with a lot of these L1s is there's a lot of competition in this space. And what they're all fighting for are developers, and they're all fighting for liquidity and capital, right? So these sorts of updates, giving that better user experience, attracting those developers, I'd be really curious to see. I mean, starting tomorrow, you said, so over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, how many more developers start to come over to Cardano, and how much of an impact it makes on that space? Because as developers come, the money's going to come, and then that's what's really going to bolster some of these L1s over the others. So I think it's really exciting to see these sorts of upgrades. I don't think they're necessarily the biggest things, but they're super, super important when you can actually see people executing on their roadmap and making progress. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just to kind of that's a great point, Mata, and just to kind of bring us home, right? Just reviewing the main things that are going to be changing at the end of basically come tomorrow. Is the cost of transactions are expected to be less. The speed of transactions, so transactions per second, is supposed to be beefed up. They haven't said exactly by how much yet. That'll be interesting to see. The scalability of dApps on Cardano is going to be a lot easier given the smart contract capabilities that are being put in place. It's going to become even more secure as well with that collateral with the specified wallet that's going to be automatically created. So they're basically just trying to address all of the pain points of the layer ones to your point, Mata. But that is kind of the Vasil upgrade in a nutshell. And thank you guys all for tuning in. And we'll see you in the next one.